If you're a fan of the early days of the Atari 2600, of course you know the games and play and enjoy those. Certainly there's been plenty of praise heaped upon that original artwork that graced the covers of the boxes, kind of the artwork that got our imaginations cooking back before the game screenshots looked like very much at all. But there is a facet of especially the early 2600 game library, published by Atari in particular, that I don't think gets nearly enough attention. It's one of my favorite facets, and that is the game select matrix from the back of the manual. I'm going to talk about it after this.
This video brought to you in part by Tommy and the Order of Cosmic Champions. This exciting and heartwarming coming-of-age Gen X novel is available now. Check the link for more info.
Hey there, welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I'm John and I am a Gen X Grown-Up. Thank you for taking the time to click on this quick video. I was just thinking the other day, in fact I think it was in a video I was running through something and I pointed out, oh, there's that cool game select matrix, and it got me kind of thinking, it's a part of the game that, like the artwork that gets so much praise, it got my imagination cooking, not so much of what the game might be, but in all the variation that is in the game. If I went to the store or the mall with my parents and I talked them into buying me a game, there was no way I wasn't ripping it open in the car and reading through the manual on the way home. And part of that was going to the back. A lot of them would say, 100 games, 40 games, 60 games, whatever in this. You don't really get 60 different games. What you were getting was variations of that game that were available using the game select switch. And I've always been a fan of just the appearance of these game select matrices. So let's walk through a few of my favorites and I'll show you what I mean. Now I've grabbed a few Atari manuals here that have matrices in them just to talk about kind of what we saw in the game. And part of what they would advertise is how many games are on it, like I said, and it wasn't really that many different games, as you know. Let's start with combat. If we go to the back of the manual and we have this really cool matrix, let's turn it sideways. Now with combat, you did have a variety of different games. You had regular tank and tank pong, invisible tank, the biplanes, the jet fighters, and all that. So you did have effectively, 6 different games. You could say tank and tank pong, they're together, they're just a variation. But you know what I mean, you actually have different sorts of games to play. But the reason you needed a game matrix, and the reason they could say there were however many, 27 different games here, is because the limited storage on a cartridge was such that you could put the variation in the game, but there wasn't a way to put a menu up for you to select the different options in the game. Like for example, right now, if you launched a modern game, you would say guided missiles, on or off. Well, there's not a way to say on or off natively just in a displayed menu, or straight missiles on or off, or machine gun on or off, billiard hit on or off. That's the ricochet. So what they do is you have all these options available to you, and you have to permute them. Like, what if I want this one and this one on? Okay, that's option 1. What if I want this one and this one on? That's option 2. What if I want this one and this one on? And so it really just became a way to permute, what are all the combinations you could have? And that's a different game, basically. And what you end up with is this kind of a shotgun artwork of these little boxes that are filled in with different colors that mean different things. Now, usually you'd remember your favorite, we love playing on game option 12. That's the best 2-player version. Or 2-player. If you wanted to play 1-player, 2-player, that was another tick box. You have 10 variations, and then you have 1 and 2-player. You have to turn that on and off. That's 20 variations. So that becomes tons and tons of different games that are really the same game with different options enabled. Let's move on to Super Breakout, which doesn't have a whole bunch of different games, but it's a good example of how the simple options become game variations and populate this grid. Great example here of what we were just talking about. So look, game number 1 is 1-player Breakout. Okay, and then game number 2 is 2-player Breakout. So that's not 2 different games, it's just 2 different dip switch settings of what options are available when you push start. And then you could have, I want to play double breakout single player, double breakout 2-player. Then we have cavity 1-player, cavity 2-player, progressive 1-player, progressive 2-player. It goes on and on. You can see it's just all these variations. Now this is a simple matrix, but it's a really good example of how really just progressive, cavity, double, and regular are the 4 options. And 4 times 2, That's great. And then you have to add the children's version. You're like, oh, okay, I see how you got there. So yeah, you end up with this grid that takes the place of a menu. Now in later games, what did we just look at the other day? Save Mary. That came out, well, it actually came out I think in the 90s, but when it was built, there was a larger ROM size available. So there is a menu, like you see on the title screen, it says like novice and medium and expert or whatever. So rather than having game select options, that wasn't really needed on later games because we had, very, very later games, and especially modern homebrews, you just don't see this anymore because there's enough memory to show you all the options. The next one I wanted to look at is Defender, which was an arcade port, and it doesn't have a variety of different games, right? It doesn't have, planes and then the tanks and then tank pong and all that. It's always Defender, but when you get to the grid, there's a lot of options here. Defender has 20 different variations you can run through in the game select. And again, it's just a permutation of the different kinds of options you would have available to you. So for example, the basic is, all right, humanoid speed, medium, no mutant training mission, mutant invader speed is medium, and you start on level 1. But if you wanted to move these to fast with level 1, that bumps up to number 2. If you wanted to have the mutant training session here and very fast, well, that's option 3. And then you can do the same thing again. They repeat that starting on level 3, 1, 2, 3. Starting on level 5, 1, 2, 3. And then you have the child's options where everything is slow. And then all of that duplicated as a 2-player game down here. So exact same options, run 11 through 20. Now, you didn't see game matrices and even game options so much in a lot of, I'll say mid to late 80s. 83, 85, 87, right up in there. You wouldn't see a lot of this because A, as we already mentioned, the cartridge size was getting bigger and you could start to show the option, but games didn't have that many options. It was, it was a racing game and you didn't have options for the game, or it was an arcade port. It's Mr. Do or something, and there's no variation of Mr. Do. It's just here's the arcade port. We have no game select. There's a number of games I've covered that have no game select at all. It's the game you plug in, and that's it. Not the case with Defender. It was early enough, but a lot of later ones fall in that category. Speaking of arcade ports, the last one I want to look at here, just as example, is the notorious port of Pac-Man. And I would hazard to guess that a lot of people played Pac-Man and didn't even know you could do game select and pick different variations of Pac-Man, but they do make a huge impact. Let's dig in here to the back. Now, Pac-Man didn't have the 1-player, 2-player problem because Pac-Man is strictly a 1-player game on Atari. I remember hearing that has to do with the fact that they couldn't remember the layout of the maze between players. Not enough memory. They couldn't do it. But look, there are 8 options here, and the base is slow-moving or fast-moving Pac-Man. So when you start the game just on option 1 and don't hit game select, you're actually playing slow Pac-Man and ghosts at a jogging speed. But you can also have slow Pac-Man, ghosts at a running speed. You can have fast Pac-Man, ghosts at a walking speed, and children's version. Then you can have fast-moving Pac-Man, ghosts at a walking speed, not the children's version, and it continues down through here. So you can enable these different options. You can have Pac-Man move fast and the ghosts are going really slowly. You can have really easy on the kids levels. That's the little teddy bear logo. This was on Defender 2. You saw that. Yeah, special feature, teddy bear feature showed that for young kids that would get frustrated easily would have that. So Pac-Man, I think pretty much people turned on Pac-Man and played it on level 1 or didn't play it at all, and rarely dug into these options. And when I do my Friday plays off, and I like to talk about all the game variations because often people didn't have a manual, so if they hit game select a few times, it was just confusing because they didn't know what it was going to do. But yeah, this game select matrix was something that just was a huge part of the games for me, and just people don't talk about it enough. A few years ago, when Atari started reproducing and reissuing old 2600 cartridges, often something that was missing was a manual. And there was a lot of outcry from fans and collectors. And though I don't remember it being expressly said, one of those reasons might have been enjoying the artwork and that game select matrix in the back. There's something about something intangible about remembering going through that when you're not playing the game. I remember when I was at school, I would have these manuals in my backpack to pore over and be able to look at that game select matrix and go, well, I get home, I've never tried this combination of things. I don't know. Did you ever think of them that way? Are they a part of the art of Atari, or have you never really considered it until maybe seeing this video? Every time I see one, it makes me grin. I just remember being a kid with my Atari. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Did you have a favorite one that you remember fondly, or introduced a world of possibility in a game you were getting ready to play? Let me know. Again, I can't wait to hear from you. I'm going to throw links to some other Atari coverage I've done here and here. I certainly hope you found something to enjoy in this video. Can't wait to talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.